For USCFootball.com, Connor Morrissette and Chris Trevino were here on campus after USC's Tuesday practice of the first bye week. The Trojans will take on Michigan next Saturday, not this Saturday, but I'm sure they're chomping at the bit to get back out there. That's what a couple players said. Chris, how are you today?
I'm doing good. The bye week, take it a little bit slower this weekend, get to watch some games finally and not have to cover a game. But yeah, it's kind of it feels a little bit slower, kind of down transition, catch your breath after 5 weeks.
Totally. So let's start with the hot button topic right now, that is this food poisoning thing. So Kamari Ramsey got food poisoning and missed the Illinois game. USC, of course, went on to lose that game 34-32. They're 4-1 heading into this bye week. And lately there have been some rumors, I don't even know what to call it, but we've seen people say, it was widespread and it wasn't just Ramsey dealing with it. That is true. It wasn't just Ramsey dealing with it, but it was not widespread. Lincoln Riley put that to bed today. He said we had a few guys that didn't feel well, that weren't 100% and had varying symptoms. Not widespread, not 50 people. So a few guys, and we did hear that another important defensive player did have some symptoms. So this isn't a nothing burger, but this isn't a situation where it was the whole team or the whole defense, and that's why they look so bad. It was a couple guys, and unfortunately it got Ramsey, who's one of those key guys, but not a widespread thing.
It's definitely a story that's sort of picked up over the last 24 hours of, whole team or super widespread or the whole defensive side of the ball and stuff like that. When we initially heard about it and reported it, that sounded like some other guys weren't feeling under the weather. When we heard that, it wasn't this big group. It wasn't like a whole position group. It wasn't 40 plus guys. It wasn't that. It was a couple guys. A few other guys weren't feeling 100%. And that's what we initially heard, and that's what Lincoln Riley has sort of backed up with today's press conference. So, it's just something that's kind of gotten a little bit out of control, saying, where's the team poison? You look up the, they need to bring up charges. They need to investigate Illinois.
They need to sue.
I think it's just getting out of control right now. It's the simplest answer is that a couple guys were feeling under the weather, obviously, and Kamari Ramsey got the brunt of it, unfortunately, for USC.
And we do look into this on our own, too, where we reach out to people, hey, what have you heard? What did you hear? And everyone that I've talked to has heard it wasn't this widespread thing. So I take Lincoln Riley at face value. And if it was 50 people, they would come out and say that, because that is a huge problem. So it's unfortunate that it affected a couple of key guys, not trying to take anything away from the players who did have those symptoms, but they didn't play very well, and a big reason why didn't have to do with food poisoning. A couple guys had the symptoms, but they also just didn't play very well, some of the guys on defense who did not have it.
And I just want to say Lincoln Riley was not using it as an excuse at all.
No.
Even the guys that, were under the weather, it's like, you just got to, it's just something that happens. You got to get over.
That's just road ball.
It's road ball. You got to start using road ball more often on this instant analysis.
Yes, I like that. Okay, let's get into some injury updates. Lincoln Riley said today that Killian O'Connor is out for the next 2 games, maybe more, but at least the next 2 games, which is good. We thought he might be out for the season because he's had some knee stuff in the past, and it looked like he injured his knee against Illinois. That's what caused him to go out in the second quarter, but some good news there. It will be big General Reed for the Michigan game, and is it Notre Dame after the Michigan game? Yeah, then the Notre Dame game. So he'll have to step up, but he has a lot of experience, and O'Connor will return this season, it sounds like, so that's some good news.
Yeah, very, very good news for USC, just, getting your starting center back, and at least they have a veteran guy behind him in Big General to take up the mantle there until he's back. But those are 2 tough games, obviously. Michigan, Notre Dame, those are games you would want him there. But, it kind of sets up nicely because you got the bye week for the extra week of rest, Michigan, Notre Dame, and then another bye week. So maybe going into Nebraska, you can see Killian O'Connor reinsert into the lineup. And that's tough. Obviously he has battled the same knee injury for the last year or so. He missed time last year when he went down in a game with the knee injury, missed time in the spring, shut down, virtually lost, the whole second half of spring as he was shut down with the same injury. So it always felt like he was a high risk of injuring it again. It is something that will need to be fixed in the future, but for right now, at least sounds hopeful that USC will get back number 67 at some point this season.
And with all of that going on, he still won the starting job, so it shows how important he is. Shotgun, our colleague, posted on Twitter an example where it didn't look like General Reed set the best protection against Illinois, and it caused some confusion on the offensive line, and Maeva was pressured. That's something that General Reed is going to have to improve on. That was an area that led to O'Connor winning the job over him. He was just so much more comfortable in the offense and was better at calling out the protection. So we'll see if Reed can make some improvements there in the bye week. Here are the guys who did dress up in the Shells practice today, or dress out, I should say. It's not dress up. Kamari Ramsey, Elijah Page, Jacoby Lane, DeCarlos Nicholson, Alex Graham. They were all out there. Don't know to what degree they were practicing, but good news that those guys were out in their jerseys today.
Absolutely, especially Elijah Page, who did not look great doing the warm-ups at Illinois. Just wasn't even doing a full warm-up, looked very gingerly in how he was running. So to see him come out in full pads was a good sign. They could have very easily not had him out there. Obviously we don't know how much he did, but the fact that he did come out was probably a good sign that he was getting some work. And again, it was a Shells practice. This wasn't a full pads. Usually it's full pads on Tuesday, but with the bye week, you're taking a little bit off the gas.
And with Page, Riley right off the bat said that it's probably only a couple of weeks, so that would line up with him playing against Michigan after he got hurt against Michigan State, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so it looks like he'll be good for this Michigan game. No timetable yet for Brian Jackson's injury. Riley said it's too early for that, so I expect him to miss the Michigan game.
I thought it was interesting because he did not rule out him missing the rest of the season.
Which is too bad.
It wasn't great. That's how he started. It's like I wouldn't rule him out missing the rest of the season, but it sounds like at least several weeks before we would potentially see Brian Jackson come back.
And we'll see if Alex Graham can work his way back, but let's say he's ready to go and 100%. Don't you feel like they're going to play D. Reddick over Alex Graham because of what Reddick did against Illinois? And maybe it's Kamari Ramsey at nickel and Reddick goes to the bench. But what if Reddick just has a great couple weeks, and I could see him being the starting nickel and Ramsey going to safety, even if Alex Graham's healthy. We know Graham was doing well in the offseason, but the fact that he's missed the last 5+ weeks now with that injury, I think Reddick, it would make sense if he was ahead of him just because he's so new for Graham. It's so new right now with college football.
Not only has Alex Graham never played in a college game, he's not game conditioned. He hasn't played a game this year. He's been down virtually the whole season, so he is not in game condition. So it's going to take a little bit of time. If he's good to go, like 100%, I would expect him to get a couple snaps, just get his feet wet against Michigan. I mean, obviously you want to pick and choose where you play him, but yeah, I would expect with the bye week, you're going to work Kendarius Reddick, D. Reddick. You're going to give him the opportunity so you can get your alignment back with Kamari Ramsey back as a more natural safety position for him. So that's what the bye week is for, tinkering, moving around. You finally got someone who could potentially play nickel and getting a little bit healthy with Alex Graham. So, yeah, I would expect D. Reddick to have a big bye week in terms of getting some reps in practice.
I like what I saw from him against Illinois, too. And I know the staff is really high on him. We've talked a lot about that on Instant Analysis, so it seems like he is in a good spot. He made some really nice tackles. Lincoln Riley, outside of the food poisoning, he talked about how he thinks Christian Pierce is playing off the charts right now. I would agree with that. Christian Pierce is continuing to do really well. Riley said explosive plays for Illinois. He felt like that was the difference. The swing pass that went for a touchdown to Caden Fagan, and then the 29-yard route that one of the Illinois receivers ran. I think it was Justin Bowick. I think that's his name. On Braylon Conley, those two plays changed the game. Obviously, the 2 touchdowns. But Riley said of the secondary, at the end of the day, you got to go perform, and that group just really hasn't been getting it done there. What's your confidence level that they'll be able to turn it around?
Medium. I mean, you do have some hope with Danson Lynn as obviously, a NFL coach, really good coaching pedigree. Again, I'm trying to figure out what to say, put it nicely. I mean, you don't have a clear guy in that room. You don't have your NFL dude, your CB1. DeCarlos Nicholson is the closest to that, and he's been okay. He's been banged up. Obviously in that Illinois game, he missed a lot of time and was playing through some stuff. So you're hoping to get him back healthy. But at the end of the day, you have some young guys in there, and you need them to grow up fast. And you've seen signs of that with Marcellus Williams and Braylon Conley, but you need them in the back half of the season. You need a jump after this bye week. You need this bye week to get a little bit closer to having a better secondary, an improved secondary. So they're going to come out. Obviously this Michigan team likes to run it more than anything, so maybe that'll be an easy, first week back for the secondary. But overall, there needs to be better coaching, needs to be better play, needs to be better everything going on with the secondary. So Dantlin's going to have to earn that paycheck this week, and Doug Belk and Trevon Reed, they have some work to do. I think you've seen a little bit of signs of some experience being had with these two young guys, and Carlos hopefully he's healthier this coming week. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't say super high confidence, but I have some hope for them that they can turn it around, or at least get a little bit closer to being like just above good, above average a little bit. They don't need to be elite. They just need to be better than what they're playing the first few weeks of the season.
And maybe during this bye week, is that an opportunity for R.J. Sermons to get more reps, the true freshman? So that'll be something to watch. I don't anticipate USC doing the same thing that hasn't been working. They're going to take these next 2 weeks to make some changes, and we'll see what that looks like in the secondary. I thought Riley had some interesting comments about the defensive line. He said straight up, we weren't as good on the defensive line against Illinois. We were undisciplined. It took too long to adjust. It took too long to get started. They didn't start well. They didn't get out of the gate. And if I could ask a follow-up, that was one of the last questions he answered today. It would have been, why weren't they ready out of the gate? Like, this was your opportunity on national TV early in the day, as opposed to all the night games that they've had previously. This was your chance to show the country the strides that you've made, show the defensive line improvements, the trench play. Why did they not start the game well? That was incredibly frustrating, and it carried over through the rest of the afternoon, part of the morning. Those guys weren't ready to go. That needs to be the calling card of the defense. They've invested so many financial resources into that position at the transfer portal. The edge rushers all return. God, I'm still frustrated if you couldn't tell. That was a game that was just so disappointing from that specific position group. Like, at least the secondary, okay, we expect them maybe to have some bad plays, but the defensive line to not really generate much pressure at all. I rewatched the game this morning. Some of it was what Illinois was doing with some quick passes, but there were some key plays where Luke Altmaier had all day, and that was something that surprised me, and I don't know why that unit couldn't get out of the gate quicker.
You're making these comments in front of the Wild Bunch.
They'd be disappointed.
Very disappointed in that effort that USC put on, and he said, took them a while to get started. I don't know if they even got started at all. Nobody flashed along the defensive line, and we're talking about an Illinois' offensive line that had given up the most sacks in FBS or among Power 4 teams. So they were wounded, they were, down, but credit to Illinois, they whipped their butt in practice going to this game. They lit a fire under them, and they played like that. And USC's defensive line, maybe they just walked in there thinking, we lead the nation in sacks, so it's just going to be, we're just going to fall into 5 sacks or 6 sacks in this game. No, that didn't happen. And again, credit to Illinois, they played tough. They played like a group that had 5 returning starters. They played like a group that people thought they would be going to the season. And maybe USC gets that next in 2 weeks against Michigan. Maybe they get a fire lit under them, and they come out there and play like a super talented front that we know they can be. And maybe they take a step forward like Illinois did this past week, their offensive line. So who knows? This is a game of momentum, and USC had no momentum on the defensive line in that game. So maybe they can build some over this bye week.
It's a very unpredictable sport, as we know very well. We heard from Lake McCree, Makai Lemon, Jaden Mayava, Tobias Raymond, Walker Lyons, offensive players today. I asked Lake if he feels like he's playing the best football of his life right now, because it looks that way to me. He said yes, and it's because he's confident. He knows the scheme much better, being an experienced player, and he's really healthy. So that was great to see. He made some tremendous catches against Illinois. That one over the middle where he got upended and he hung on to the ball, and then that great catch before halftime where he got his knee down in bounds. He's turning into a really, really key part of this offense, which is great to see. Not turning into, he is. Makai Lemon, all business as usual. Not really much to report from him. How did it feel? I asked him how does it feel to be the nation's leader in receiving yards? And he said, feels good, but just same as last week, keep doing what I'm doing. And Jaden Mayava seemed to be in a good mood today, Chris. He said that Lincoln Riley tells him to lock in after he makes mistakes on the sideline, and he had a smile with that response. He said Jacoby Lane hypes him up the most out of his teammates, and he's improved this year on not turning the ball over as much, which we can all see. He did have the one pick against Illinois, but man, has he been improved from last year.
Yeah, absolutely. He has significantly raised his floor, based off that Illinois game. This was something we wanted to see. Only had the one turnover, finally got it off, ripped the Band-Aid off. It was going to happen. And came in really strong in that second half of that game with the 2 touchdown passes, over 300 yards passing. Some off passes throughout the game, some throws off his back foot. There was a little more pressure in his face after Jeremy Reed came in with those communications issues. But for overall, I thought he did play really well in this game, despite the inaccurate throws at times and some of those floated throws at times. But still made some really nice throws. That Mekhi Lemon dot on the 3rd and 16 after the intentional grounding. What a throw. That's an NFL throw. And to do it with pressure coming right at him, and he knows he's going to get smushed, and he still makes a throw. And credit to Mekhi Lemon too, showing a lot of courage in those receptions that he was making in traffic. So a lot of praise for those two and that combination. And again, he played really well considering some of the obstacles they had in this game. So I think he's done a really good job, has raised this floor, and he has certainly raised the ceiling of this team and this offense.
I agree. I love what I saw from him. A couple missed throws, as you said, but he continues to be one of the big stories of this season. His improvement from last year to this year, it's been great to see, and it's just fun to watch, especially that connection with Mekhi Lemon. But the tight ends, those screen passes, the offense is clicking. They certainly did enough to win against Illinois, in my opinion, getting the team the lead back with under 2 minutes to go. So if they can continue to make some plays, Elijah Page gets healthy, Jacoby Lane gets healthy, it looks like it's just going to be a points fest for USC. That's going to be how they win some of these games based on the defensive performance last week. But with Lincoln Riley calling the plays and this offense clicking, I'm not ruling anything out with them right now. They're limited defensively, clearly, but this offense can be pretty good. Any other thoughts, Chris, from Tobias Raymond or Walker Lyons?
Just very quickly on Walker Lyons, I asked about the impact that they had. I was like, was this one of the best games you've played as a tight end? Because they didn't have touchdowns, but they made some really crucial catches, really tough catches. And he was like, yeah, it felt good having a performance like that with Lake. There was like seven catches among them for, I don't know, like 70 yards, something like that. Maybe I'm off on that number, but again, you saw the game. You saw the impactful catches they were having, tough catches, getting hit over the middle, getting upended, as you said. Lake had that fantastic sideline catch. So that was the game. He's like, that was the game we'd always envision when you come to USC as a tight end, being part of this offense. So tight ends have some momentum right now. They're just not catching those like little short touchdown passes. They're actually having impact between the 20, in the middle of the field. They're picking up first downs. They're coming up big with these tough contested catches. So, tight end, I have that stock. I'm close to buying that second yacht, baby, with all that stock I bought. So just a little bit more, and I get 2 yachts.
Please help me get on one of those when you get it. McCree's been awesome blocking, too, for the most part.
Yeah.
He opened up some big holes. Joel Klatt highlighted one of the key blocks he made on a run play, so that's been great to see. Hope he can stay healthy and just continue to do what he's doing. That's a wrap for Instant Analysis. He's Chris Trevino. I'm Connor Morrissette. I'll be back with Riley Sager tomorrow for more Instant Analysis. Hope you enjoyed this edition, and we'll see you next time.